And we continue to find ways to support more learners to be able to grow our network. This is the network that is going to support you in your learning, but also continue to grow us as Gemini as we move forward. So thank you to our learners. Now, what is our metric of success? So we have chosen a primarily, but not exclusively, a primarily NIH funded grant as our metric of success. Why is this? Because it's from our leadership. They have primarily chosen an NIH metric of success. And it comes with a not enough, never enough, but a significant amount of overhead, meaning funding to the infrastructure of our team and our departments and our funders. So if you don't know, every dollar that we bring in, 60 cents goes to the Department of Medicine and the School of Medicine and Global Health Institute. So for a $100,000 grant would be $60,000. That's pretty cool, but that's necessary to be able to do the things that we need to do, which is why we've chose this funding mechanism. Some funders don't have that kind of support. It doesn't mean that they're not good funders. They're lovely funders, and we're eager to work with them as well. It's just, this is the metric that has been set up, so this is what we use. We are, if you take a look at this funding and realize that we're talking emergency medicine, global health, we are the #1 funded emergency medicine global health center in the nation when we're talking about research. That's amazing. That is so cool. This has been a decade of work. And if you take a look, some of these dates, there's even some before this. Our first KO1 started in 2015. And so it's now been 9 full years of work, of NIH funded work. And these are our active projects, or ones that just closed within this fiscal year. We have work that goes a significant amount of funding along the alcohol line, but we have a large amount of injury, surgery, mobile health technology, cancer care through our career development awards, hypertensive care, cardiovascular disease, etc. So thank you to all of our PIs. We hope to see our PIs grow during this time period. And our partnerships continue to develop during different sites for where our projects happen. Now, to get all of these grants, you have to submit grants. So what does that look like? We have had more than 5 in the last July and August. That's an insane number of NIH grants if you guys don't understand. Sometimes 1 or 2 is what people focus on. We've done 5 in 2 months. We did 18 during fiscal year 2024. That's insane. But that takes a lot of work from everybody involved. So thank you to everybody for focusing on the details, the paperwork, the organization and structure, and for our scientists and team to work on the science itself. 62 peer-reviewed publications in 1 year. 62. Again, this is because you guys are so productive. So congratulations to all of you for 62. So everybody talks about, sure, you can get all of these grant submissions in. Are they actually getting there? Are they getting scored? Are they getting funding? Is it working? We've had multiple proposals that have been scored and resubmitted, or scored and then are getting resubmitted, to the point where right now we're doing primarily resubmissions and our scoring rate is going up. I would say right in the last 4 months, I don't know of a grant that wasn't scored. They were all scored. That's unusual. And as we continue with our process and learning the process to do this, our scores are going well down, because down is a better score. So as we continue to do this and we learn how to do this well, we're getting better, and you see it in the process that we're getting better and better and better. So this is how you learn how to grant write, is that you do it and you do it over and over and over again. So when we invite you to grant write with us, please take the opportunity to learn the process and the system, to learn how we do it, because you will catapult your ability to grant write. You will catapult your ability to do this your first time by learning from our trial and error as a team, okay? So congratulations to the team. This is amazing work and amazing numbers. And really, this is what underlines the success of our center. But you don't just start at NIH-funded work. You start at small grants, and these small grants build to the larger grants, which have more infrastructure support. Look at the diversity of the grants that we have on this page, from the diversity of funders. This is incredible in terms of all of these preliminary grants are going to build into research lines within the next few years, or they're going to support research lines or career development, as in Charlotte's case, as we see here. And then it goes on and on and on. These small grants are what help our learners learn to write, practice writing, practice getting grants, and to get the larger grants, you need the smaller grants to demonstrate you know how to do it. So please work together and tell us when you're interested in writing one of these smaller grants. We're happy and eager to support you, and think through ways that it can align with current and ongoing research within the center, to be able to make sure that the data that you'll be pulling in will be in line with our research projects and topics, so that it can be continued, and then the data isn't just a one-off and going outside of the scope of where the center can support you. So speaking of that, what are our research topics and how are we going to do this? This is a lot of work. So what is our focus? We have three main foci. The first is implementation for low resource settings. As I said, we're very solution focused. We want to implement something to improve processes, to solve problems. We're going to do that with innovation and data science components. And we want to think about health system resiliency and health services research. Okay. Health services research includes all of the clinical work that we do, creating clinical practice guidelines, creating interventions, implementing interventions, thinking through processes of access to care coordination or access to care itself. There are some times where we go outside of these three tenets, but most of the time it's because it builds from a research question and a problem in the area that we're focused, and it can be tied back into one of these if you take a look at it. We really want to do this through outreach and partnership. These are the ways that it works in global health. We have to have true partnerships with our global sites where we're working, because our partners and the communities of those settings understand the problems in a way we never will be able to. We have to think about sustainability. How do we sustain not only our center and the people who work within our center and our learners, but our partners and the work that they are doing? And then how do we integrate? We need to integrate not only into the local Duke environment and the Duke opportunities across campus, but then regionally and then globally. And then there's some special settings, some special components that we want to focus on. One is equitable access to quality care. Equity is an incredibly important tenet of our center. This is why we have been formed. While we are called global, global is local, and we think about equity not only in the United States, but globally. Everyone deserves quality care. And the work that we do would always need to integrate thinking about who is not going to get this care because of the way that I've structured the intervention to make sure we, as much as possible, we can improve equitable access. We have a large focus on behavior change. Almost all of implementation science is thinking about changing behavior is really hard. So how do we do that with the most success, whether it's an alcohol intervention or whether it's implementing a clinical practice guideline where you need physicians to change their behavior and their practices. So keeping in mind understanding behavior change is a huge tenet of what we do. Minority population health. Minority populations don't always receive equitable access. And so in being able to drive towards equitable access, we need to focus on minority populations to ensure an equitable access and outcome. And then finally, climate change is going to be causing innumerable number of challenges within our health system and out of our health system in terms of our environments and our communities. So thinking about how climate change impacts our communities and then trying to create more resilient health systems to account for climate change related disasters and or just the environment that is to come in the setting of climate change is a focus, a topic, and interest. So many of you will know the baobab tree from Tanzania, and this is a beautiful tree from Brazil that made me think of the same baobab from Tanzania. But as GEMINI developed, we developed with a very strong base and then blossomed into a myriad of questions. So what has that looked like? I'm going to go through quickly, but almost all of these, if they are green, they are funded. If they are yellow, they are submitted or resubmitted. And there are a few that have been changed or I was very excited and made them green, but they weren't yet funded, as in the elderly trauma. But it's resubmitted, so it's fine. We started with an injury and pediatric injury registry. From there, we started to identify alcohol being a really high risk indicator within Tanzania. And this grew into the alcohol line, which you can see here, which was a career development award to create PPK, evaluate PPK, and then now the price, which is funded. This has also grown into adapting this PPK for women and making sure women who have 42% of women who still drink during pregnancy have access to knowledge and tools to be able to change their behavior during a unique and important period of pregnancy. We have a grant that is currently being submitted that is going to be focusing on suicidality or mental health amongst those that are have alcohol use disorder, because we're finding that nearly 10% of our population of alcohol users are suicidal. Incredibly high rates in a young, healthy population. Innovation has come into effect when we start to think about how can we otherwise, other than self-report, how can we think about screening our patients to get a better understanding without language being a barrier, without culture being a barrier, to really understand who is at risk for alcohol use disorder and addiction. Outside of the alcohol line, there were other access to care components, specifically thinking holistically about our patients. And that's where transitions of care came in. In this project, we wanted to see all of the things that were affecting our patients, whether it was mental health, substance abuse, overall injury and the injury impact and rehabilitation, but also their underlying medical diseases. Are they healthy and well young people? Or do they have high risks of hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and HIV? And some of that from what we identified from that study was that they are fairly young, healthy, but they have a significant amount of mental health challenges. They have very limited access to rehabilitation after the fact. And the transitions in care within the hospital, being able to come into the hospital and being assessed for all of the things that are going to burden them from a psychosocial and financial standpoint, was very limited and needed support. This is developed into some of our specific clinical practice guideline driven processes like the elderly care R21. So thanks to our team in Tanzania for writing and leading this project. And we're excited that it's now being resubmitted. But there are other components of trying to understand how we improve that clinical care. And that includes a lot of our predictive model-based questions, like a decision tool on who should be transferred through Kuamua, or a mobile app on this transfer process through Kuishi, which is very similar to some of the work that we're having in P-Kids care, which is really focused on pediatric injury. And thanks to Dr. Keating, who's bringing along one of her fellows in Kaisa, is really focusing on burn injury, with mortality rates at 25% or higher of pediatric burn cases at KCMC. A lot of our injury has really benefited from the TRACK program, or our capacity building program, where our learners have really been focusing on individual projects using our data and secondary analysis to be able to create or think about what the next steps for understanding what interventions could be. So thank you to our TRACK program. These are some of the preliminary questions that you guys developed. And as we get final word of your acceptances or your positive defenses, we will add your projects to the list in green as a success. But we started with a lot of non-injury research. As soon as we started our injury line and saw the success that it was having, certain faculty came with non-injury research support and interest. And within the ongoing data collection processes at KCMC from cancer, cardiovascular, and birth areas, we've been able to support multiple career development awards and training awards to go in the direction of building new research lines. So as you look at it all together, this is a significant amount of research at one site alone. This is a myriad, dozens of people's careers in research, supporting 30, 40, 50 learners over the time period, and all stemming from data, quality data collection. So this means our team in Tanzania who do the data collection are the foundation of the success of Gemini itself. So we thank our teams in Tanzania for their hard work of participation, collecting data, doing quality assessments, and building this infrastructure for the patients for which KCMC serves. But we don't just focus on KCMC in Tanzania. We have other focus around the world. And as I said, our second flagship site is Brazil. Within Brazil, some of our myriad collaborations, one of them is in Manaus with FMT. One of the focuses of FMT is to really think about infectious diseases, tropical medicine, but also to think about how we can build partnerships with our population there in the region to understand what is happening in the setting of climate change. So a collaboration that's been happening recently is building to an observatory. This observatory starts to think about our communities within Brazil, what they're facing, what their experiences have been within their environments, and how they need help in order to manage and access health systems because of the impact of climate change, change in water, change in infectious diseases, change in access to care. And the burden that comes with accessing the health system, and for many, it means leaving their environment, not knowing if they'll ever return, leaving the support of their family and infrastructure, and hoping they can receive the care they need and return home. So by building a link to the community that allows us to collect data or biosurveillance of what's happening not only with the animals and the water and the system and the environment, but the needs of the population, we then can start to build a health system that's responsive to the needs of the community, as well as understand what's happening. Because we as investigators or we as data collectors can't collect all the data that we need to understand our changing world in the setting of climate change. So we need to partner with the community, which is far bigger than we are, far more knowledgeable and has this impact, to be able to partner so that we can support a resilient health system that can meet their needs, while they can start to feed in the innovative and important areas that we need to focus on in terms of changes. So this kind of observatory is an incredibly important idea, as well as active and ongoing research project through the Rivera project with our partners at FMT. And that is outside all of our snakebite and antivenom work, decentralization of antivenom, and hard work that a lot of our partners have been leading in the Brazil sites. So I hope this is a gross overview because we can't go into detail about all of this work, but each of these projects require hundreds and hundreds of hours of work and interest and many people involved. But as a brief overview, I hope that this has been sort of a quick glimpse back at how we started, how we're working, what our goals are, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say thanks, Catherine. This was very helpful. That was my first time seeing like all of the grants, like in those figures and the way it was color coded. So that was awesome to see like where you all started and how the grants and the research lines flow. from one another. So thank you. That was great.
Of course, thanks, Kiana.
I just want to mention that I also think we need to have Emily, Anna create a similar growth tree for the lines so we can have all of those listed out there because I think it's sure better. But yeah, thanks for showing that out, Catherine.
The tree will become a forest.
Yes,
Correct.
correct.
Very good.
Yep, I do need help in growing that because there's now beyond just sort of one thing that I can manage. So please hop on board. I'll show you the figures that we have and add in where you see that your lines grow within our center.
And how they map into this slide in particular.
Yes,
Because I think they do, but I think it's just like a good exercise
it is.
to make sure it stays within the bucket.
Exactly. Because then we grow our expertise in specific areas, right? And that's
Yeah.
really important to be able to say where our expertise is.
Comment from Marcos, amazing to see all the work of so many people. Thanks so much for presenting all this subject, Catherine. Thanks, Marcos.
Thanks, Marcos.
I think one of the things I've always really appreciated about Gemini is that it's like the quality of the work is maintained, even though like as a snapshot, it looks very broad in terms of what we do. And I think like a lot of it has to do with how like you and Jerome actually kind of run it and then the partnerships abroad. Because at first I was skeptical, honestly. I was like, how can they do so many things to like a good enough quality when a lot of the work is like operationalized by more junior people as well. I don't know if it's a comment or a question, but it's just like really like how you guys do that is impressive, you know?
Yeah.
So do you see that sustained? I think, yeah.
Yeah, so it is a comment and a question.
Yeah.
Right, so how do you do that is the question, and what we didn't go into here is really talk about the fact that we're all learners. All of us are learners, and there are some people who have more experience learning than others, and everybody has their own unique area of expertise. So what we try to do is partner people who are learning something with someone who knows that something. And then build upon that partnership a ladder of oversight and experience so that you can go to someone to find what you're looking for. And it doesn't have to be the same person. It could be somebody in the group that is a little bit more experienced in that area than you are. And so it builds a ladder of support that every person has one person they go to for the thing that they're trying to learn. So that it's not just one person mentoring. It is truly a team of mentorship. Even down to the paper level, right? So if we're thinking about writing a paper, that team of mentorship needs to be there so that every learner has support in a myriad of people for a myriad of things. It does slow things down. Welcome to the academic world. But it allows so much learning throughout the process that it's worth it. And quality is able to be maintained when you're able to identify the areas that you need support. So coming in with an open mind and open heart and honesty to say, I don't know what I'm doing in this. It's okay because we all have something we don't know what we're doing. And we can help find the person who can have that expertise to support you so that we can get to the end game with a quality product.
If I can add, like, another thing with that, which is in part what Catherine said, like, everyone is a learner, but everyone is also a contributor. Like she said, everyone is bringing their own expertise, regardless of what level they are. And I think the fact that everybody is a contributor, and not just a contributor, but like to say that, I think one thing that the group does well is give, empower people to be autonomous in their own leading their own projects. So like everybody in this room has something that they're working on that they are the lead on and that they have the autonomy on, even if they're not the expert in every little piece of it. It's high quality work because that each individual can take ownership. It's not coming from the top down that you must do this and you must do it this way, but you all have your own sense of ownership and autonomy, which contributes to, you know, the willingness to do quality work and the interest which is necessary to be satisfied and do good work, I think, in my view.
I would think that, I want to say that the other thing besides that infrastructure and that empowerment and ownership is also standardization.
Hmm.
And so we do a lot of work to standardize processes. And what that does is for the learners, a standardized process allows you to say, okay, there's a checklist that can teach me what I need that somebody else has learned and created before me. Even down to a template. A template of a paper can take a lot of the blank page anxiety away because you have a template of what you need next and what you need to include that comes from our checklists that tell us about quality. Right, so you'll see a lot of the method to our madness hidden behind a lot of our goals, right? Like our upcoming template creations and standardization processes all come from our interest in maintaining our quality and improving the experience for our junior investigators and learners to make sure that quality is of the utmost. It's a great question.
I think that's what I would start with on your slide with the tree, showing all the different projects, because all of them are NIH, which is quality.
Yes.
And so how to, I think what might be missing is the like character qualities that make that happen, which is the autonomy. Or, because when I think of, I mean, I just want to add like a stamp over that whole tree of like joy and safety to learn and to make mistakes. And I mean, there's just these like 4 tenets that I think make that possible. Yeah, which I think y'all have said, and I'm pointing to Joelle, who I know is on, have set the model for that to, I don't know, to just make it flourish if we're going to use the tree imagery. Yes, so thank you. Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Emily. That was really nicely said. Very positive feedback.
Any final thoughts, comments, or questions? Well, thanks so much to Catherine for sharing that, and thank you all for listening. Let's see.